Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is a Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that are in the upper left-hand corner of that page that say Start Here, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 21 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again, absolutely free. You can also download from that page a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to use them and listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on it, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so. If you're able to, you can join us live. You go to zoom.us and enter the meeting ID number 853-2357-4173. That's for the first hour of Mindshifter Radio. 853-2357-4173. You can also call one of the many numbers that Zoom provides and enter that ID. When you do, you'll be muted, and you can move in and out of mute by typing *6 on your phone. And we greatly appreciate whenever anybody does listen and actually send in a comment through email or meet us live and open up their mic and talk, because it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be a service, and that's just so much easier to do when we know how these things are landing for you. So, what's on your mind today? How can we support you? Welcome to everyone who's here. And what's been happening in this first hour of the Internet show is that we're working our way through Guy Finley's latest book, the early release edition of the book of One Love, One Life, One Journey. It's written by Guy Finley and Dr. Ellen Dickstein. And thanks to some detective work, people have discovered that you can get a copy of this if you get directly in contact with the Life of Learning Foundation or Guy Finley through guyfinley.org. And someone like Chris or Kate or somebody there is going to be able to hook you up. If you send them a donation, they can send you a copy of the book. And In lieu of somebody raising a hand, asking a question, making a comment, I will return to the reading in the section titled, Discover the Secret of Your Immortal Self. Guy Finley writes, throughout the sacred texts, we repeatedly find the idea that there are two aspects to a human being. There is the earth aspect, living as any other creature in the world, fulfilling the needs of nature, living and dying. And then there is the higher aspect, capable of knowing the lower consciously, and at the same time realizing its alignment with the source of its being, for which there are many names, including the divine, God, or simply capital T, truth. The level of consciousness at this level serves as a bridge between the higher and the lower realms, so that the higher will, the higher intelligence may be done on earth as it is in heaven. This aspect of a human being is connected to the eternal. It lives outside of time and therefore is immortal. And I'm not sure that we have words that can actually make sense of eternal and immortal, but suffice it to say, here's what it's not. What they're talking about here at consciousness or a higher level of awareness, it is not something that began in time and therefore will end in time. It's not in that realm. Now, what it is, there aren't really any words for. Guy Finley goes on and writes, every spiritual seeker works to discover and then live from his or her higher self. The conscious connection to this celestial seed imbues even the smallest moment. For instance, washing a dish, taking a walk, speaking to a friend. It imbues those moments with divine significance that fills one with gratitude, love, and a sense of the capital G goodness that is at the heart of the universe. This encouraging idea reaches across time to touch the hearts willing to embrace its message as follows. In the Psalms from the Old Testament, it's quoted as saying, justice not only saves those who possess it, but also leads many others to desire it and always transports them from death to eternal mortality. And then he quotes Origen as saying, Solomon knew there were in us two kinds of senses, the one being mortal, corruptible, and human, and the other immortal and intellectual, which he calls the divine. By this divine sense, therefore, not of the eyes, but of a pure heart, that is, the mind, by that God can be seen by those who are worthy. And then he quotes Gregory of Nazianzus, quote, the great architect of the universe conceived and produced a being endowed with both natures, the visible and the invisible. God created the human being, bringing forth its body from the pre-existing matter which he animated with his own spirit. Thus, in some way, a new universe was born, small and great, one at the same time. God set his hybrid worshiper on the path to contemplate the visible world and to be initiated into the invisible, to reign over earth's creatures and to obey orders from on high. He created a being at once earthly and heavenly, insecure and immortal, visible and invisible, halfway between greatness and nothingness, flesh and spirit both at the same time, an animal en route to another native land, and most of all, made to resemble God by simple submission to the divine will. Close quotes. And then he quotes Thomas Traherne as saying, "The contemplation of eternity maketh the soul immortal." And then he quotes Franz Hartmann as saying, "Each one is bound to his own ideal. He whose ideal is immortal must become immortal himself to attain it." Guy Finley goes on to say, "There is no reward on earth or even amongst the stars that is equal to the realization of this celestial nature within you. Those who have awakened and attained this pearl of great value understand, with no sense of pride for their knowledge, they understand that the greatest of human beings is nothing compared to the least of those who have realized the immortal self. In their soul burns a light that will never go out, a strength that no fear can shake, and a wisdom that understands, without taking thought, that everything that comes to us works for the good of us." Boy, that's a tough message, a tough pill to swallow for most of us human beings, especially when we're going through worry about where our next meal is coming from, or physical aches and pains from injuries or illness. So it's a real difficult pill to swallow to say that everything in life is happening for us and for the good of us, not to us in any truly negative way. And of course, that seems absurd because we have so many ways of thinking about something and throwing words on it and judging it as bad or wrong or inappropriate. And we have such a well-practiced habit of pouring our mind energy into those negativistic and judgmental thoughts. So it seems bizarre to even suggest that everything that's happened, even the broken backbone that I had in 1988, or the snapped ankle I had in 1998, or the divorce I didn't want in the early 2000s. I mean, the list goes on. All of those things, every single one of them, when they occurred, I thought, well, this is horrible. Life sucks. This is terrible. This is the worst of all possible outcomes. And yet, with the willingness and with the benefit of hindsight, I look back and I say, you know what, if those things hadn't happened, I wouldn't have some of the best things in my life today. So even though I couldn't see it at the time, all of it's been unfolding in a way that's either brought me into a position where people could bless me, or it's brought me into a position where I could be a blessing to others, and it couldn't happen if I wasn't allowing and surrendering and trusting, and only through that total allowance, acceptance, and surrender and trust do I transcend those difficult, and they were all difficult, and some even painful physically. So Guy Finley goes on and writes, in one sense, the interior journey that leads to the immortal self is demanding, and it's difficult, even seemingly impossible at times, and yet as paradoxical as it seems. There's nothing intrinsically hard about rising above ourselves and slipping into the stream of our own celestial possibilities. After all, how hard is it to let go of a favorite pair of shoes that no longer fit, or a sweater that's worn so thin that it no longer stops even the slightest breeze? These things, beloved as they may have been, have outlived their purpose. The realization of the immortal self is inseparable from seeing that who and what we have been in the past, our flattering self-images, our treasured ideas, our most prized opinions, that none of those things serve us any longer. And how do we know when the time has come to drop the very things that once defined our lives? It's when we see that holding on to them causes our suffering. Much as a great hot air balloon rises into the open skies, The moment its restraining tether is cut, so does the aspirant begin his or her ascent into the everlasting life in much the same way. One action, letting go. Two results. We leave one world, one level of self behind, and in the same moment we rise into a higher order of our own consciousness. I was listening this morning to the most recent podcast from Michael Singer, and it's basically the same message. Relax, let go, allow, surrender, learn to be okay with whatever unfolds. Not label that you like it, not label that it's right or wrong, good or bad, but be in the moment, aware that it's unfolding, and ask how you can be a blessing to yourself and others in this moment. Slightly different words used by Michael Singer, but the very same message. He says something to the effect of how you can bring ease or comfort to this moment. And I can't work at bringing ease or comfort to the moment for myself or somebody else unless I'm just fully accepting of the moment as it is. If I'm in denial about the fact that something happened, I just flashed on a scene when I was a senior in high school. My best friend from like 5th or 6th grade on was driving the car, and I was in the passenger seat. It was dark. It was at night. We're at an intersection waiting to turn right, and we saw a car come from the right into the intersection and try to take a left-hand turn, but it turned, I apologize, it's a right-hand turn, and it turned but didn't straighten out. So it turned as though it was making a right-hand turn, got onto the street, but then kept turning and drove into the wall of the building. Now, fortunately, it wasn't going at a very high rate of speed, and there wasn't anybody injured. But there was damage to the car and damage to the building. Now, my friend was sitting there. We're seniors in high school. And he says to me, okay, now what do we do? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, we've just witnessed an accident. Do we drive away or do we stay? And I said, of course we stay. And we stayed and we supported the people. But it's a choice we make. We didn't say, oh, that idiot driver, and she's going to get what she deserves. And we didn't stay and jump out and label her as an idiot and throw insults at her. We just stayed and tried to be what our parents had raised us to be, which, fortunately for the both of us, was just as loving and productive and useful in any situation as we can manage to be. Even those where there's a problem. We may be feeling pain, or we may be dealing with somebody else who's feeling physical pain. But when that's happening, judging it as bad or wrong, flying into a rage, going into a road rage situation, or screaming at whoever may have participated in it is not helping anyone. It isn't being a blessing to myself or anybody else, and it's not bringing ease or comfort, which is the way Michael Singer would invite us to. So, how can you be in the moment, each and every moment, in awe of the gift of life, in awe of the miracle of your own presence, in awe of the consciousness that can be aware of what you're experiencing? And how can you step back and watch how your mind has been trained to judge it, label it as bad or wrong, start to create the tension within you, which, by the way, holds that event and your thoughts about it in your system so you can chew on them over and over and over again, as opposed to just breathing and softening and feeling and allowing whatever energies, emotional or otherwise, that are there to move through you. In which case, what will happen is 90 seconds later, the energy will be gone or transmuted into something else. If you try to deny it and push it away, if you try and grab onto it and hold onto it, it stays in your energy system. It stays in your mind. You keep bringing your mental energy to it. You keep pouring your mental, emotional energy into it. And that's what causes me to be worried about what's going to happen in the future or what somebody's reaction was to something I did or didn't do in the past. And that's where I generate my suffering. That's what generates the vast majority of my negative emotional states. So again, not quite halfway through the hour. Just a quick reminder that if you have a question or a comment, please raise a hand or just unmute yourself and speak up, and that it includes even if I'm in the middle of reading something or seem to be on a roll in a monologue. The next section of this book is titled Your Divine Treasure Map. Where to find your higher purpose. Guy Finley writes, we love the idea of the divine, a benevolent, wise, loving, and timeless being that oversees and balances all. From a single blade of grass to the greatest of suns, this celestial intelligence that underlies all that is created and all that ever will be. We love the idea of the heart that beats our own heart. But as we love that and the idea of it, what kind of a relationship do we have with it? Do we actually remember the divine as we go through our day? Are we really remembering the divine when we're frustrated, sitting in traffic, or about to dive into our favorite dish, or gossiping with a friend, or watching an exciting movie? We have to admit, for the most part anyway, that we're far more likely to turn to the divine when times get tough. Heartsick, frightened, feeling alone, and yes, we may pray at such times. But to what do we pray? Where go those thoughts? We imagine our relationship with the divine, but dreams can't deliver us from our fear, our worry, our profound sense of being alone. It can't free us from that on its own. However, the truth is, our deepest longing is to know the divine. As Walt Whitman said, just like every atom, we long to return to our source, to know our part in the wholeness of life, to feel that we belong. But how are we to awaken a conscious relationship with the source of reality itself? And what's required of those of us who wish, more than anything, to be in touch with the timeless self, and we want it to be in touch with it on a moment-to-moment basis? These may seem like difficult questions. However, be assured, the answer to them is quite simple. A common thread that runs through the teachings of all the great sages is this: we don't have to go out seeking the divine. We are part of the divine. We are in the divine, and the divine is in us. At every moment, in the very core of our being, the only reason we ever feel alone is that we've lost our conscious connection to the deepest part of our own selves. Our task is to rediscover that part and establish a conscious connection to it. Here are just some examples of this helpful wisdom. Jesus Christ, Yeshua as we know him, was quoted as saying, "The kingdom of heaven is within." Plotinus was quoted as saying, "The wise man recognizes the idea of the capital G, good, within him." Frederick William Robertson is quoted as saying, "There is a deep significance concealed, connecting man, when once he has felt it, with the highest truths of the invisible world." So there is this connection to the highest truths of the invisible world, and once the man has felt it, he becomes consciously aware of it. And then he quotes Ramana Maharishi as saying, "God dwells in you as you, and you don't have to do anything to be God-realized or self-realized. It's already your true natural state. God dwells in you as you. Just drop all the seeking, turn your attention inward, and sacrifice your mind to the capital O O-N-E, one self, radiating in the heart of your very being. Just drop all the seeking and turn your attention inward. Sacrifice your mind, all your thoughts, to the one self radiating in the heart of your very being. Well, I'll just finish this quote. For this is to be your own presently lived experience. Self-inquiry is the one direct and immediate way to bring this about. Self-inquiry is the one way to remember consciously that you are connected to your source and can't ever be separated. Yes.
Hello, everybody. Can you, I guess you're interested in your view on to be consciously aware, what you just said in the quote there, and knowing, because in the Course in Miracles, it talks about knowing, I guess I'm seeking deeper understanding on that. To know something is to experience it, I'm sure. Right? When we know it, like to know that I am the divine versus
Okay, so now you're playing with words, and we have to be careful because every time we use a word, we might have one meaning for it and somebody else has another meaning for it. Mm-hmm. Throughout my readings in The Way of Mastery and the Course in Miracles, there are various places where they talk about knowledge as the lived experience, the felt sense.
Yes.
And they try to separate out when people say what they think and what they know intellectually. There's this huge discrepancy between what I can read in a book and what somebody else told me and what I've lived through and felt for myself. So just playing a little bit more rigorous with your definitions. What's the question you want to ask?
Well, wanting to understand the consciously aware and knowing, is that the same thing?
Well, again, it will be how do you want to define it? If you want to define those as the same, then do that. And then say, okay, here's what I mean. And when I use the words consciously aware, I don't mean thinking about it. I mean accepting, allowing, being wide awake in the moment and just being fully present.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have the knowledge that comes from direct experience. Right? And I put knowledge in quotes there because so many other people use knowledge and they talk about it as I read this book. Mm-hmm. So I know what this author said and I know what name we give to this tree.
Yeah.
And that's not really a mink. That's a marmot, and it's different. We have a different name. The animal looks pretty much the same to anybody, but so I don't know how to answer your question any more than that.
What I'm trying to get to, or I'm wanting to get to, is it's all symbology here, and I want to get to, I guess, the meaning behind it.
Okay, but you can't talk about the meaning behind it. You just have to go there and experience it. Even the Course in Miracles, Michael Ryce loves to talk about how the Course in Miracles says, don't study the Course.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's just words, and you're going to play with it. You're going to play with your words. In the most recent episode of We Can Do Hard Things in this podcast with Glennon Doyle and her sister, Amanda, and her wife, and Abby, they're talking about the real solid scientific research that says if you experience an emotion and just be with it and stay with it, it will run its course in 90 seconds or less. So then, why do people spend so much time in emotional turmoil? Because what they're doing in those periods is they're having thoughts about their feelings. So they're stuck thinking about it, labeling it, putting words on it, giving meaning to it, reacting to the meanings they're giving to it, rather than just putting the thoughts aside. Instead of asking, why am I feeling this? How is this happening? Just what am I feeling? Being with the breath and the experience and tuning into it and allowing it to be there and move through you, it will move through you. But if you go to try and create an intellectual understanding of it, now you've got something you can be chewing on 30 years later.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Really? Even though my system just fell apart? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Oh, good. And I can still hear you now that I've got everything set up again. Well, welcome. We haven't seen you in quite a while. I trust you're doing well, and I hope there's either a follow-up question or the understanding that you were looking for.
So I've been traveling. That's why you haven't seen me. I've been off different places doing my work with God. And it gives me just be an experience. That's what I got out of this. And that's hard because the intellectual mind wants to understand. So I just have to let that go. And not have to, I get to let that go and just be in conscious relationship with whatever's happening.
Yeah, you get to either let it go or you get to use it to create another set of circumstances that you can judge as bad or wrong or lovely or right. We just we don't have to do either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this mind really wants to understand. And I get to do worksheets around this.
Yeah, I just especially with people who've revealed what little you've revealed about your past, to look at things like the book on fawning by Dr. Ingrid Clayton and understand, okay, your mind is doing that because it's good at it and because in the past, when you didn't feel safe, that helped you either stay safe or feel like you were staying safe. Yeah. And so just understand it for what it is, and then you don't pour as much mind energy into it as though it's important. Yeah. Because all the stuff that we make up with our minds is not important. It's just our game. It's our play.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you.
I keep thinking, when I said that word play, I think about all the ways the way of mastery invites us to play. Be like the Creator. Understand that the Creator thinks with joy and playfulness. Even in the midst of these situations where Way of Mastery says, what if you could hold this awareness of your connection to your source and the bliss that comes with it when the walls of the building you're in are crumbling, or when the bank account's been hijacked by some scammers and is now empty? And what this work invites us to is that as a possibility in our lives. Using that intellect, which is a useful tool for certain things, using it for its best purpose. What is that? To recognize things. To recognize when I don't like how I'm feeling. Not to use it to justify my anger and bitterness and hurt, but use it to recognize that, oh, my system is generating anger and bitterness and hurt. How can I use the process differently of my own thoughts to put myself in a position where I can ask to be taught by life, rather than barging into this moment as though I'm the great and powerful one and I've got the answers? And it's just not the way these things work out well.
Yeah. Thank you.
You are welcome. I was reading the quote right before. Here's the next quote from T.S. Eliot. Quote, I said to my soul, be still and wait without hope, for hope would be hope for the wrong thing. Wait without love, for love would be love of the wrong thing. There is yet faith, but the faith and the love and the hope are all in the waiting. Wait without thought, for you are not ready for thought. So the darkness shall be the light, and the stillness the dancing. T.S. Eliot. Guy Finley writes, the realization of one's immortal self is inseparable from its revelation. The realization is the same as the revelation. What is timeless isn't in a time to come. It's merely hidden within passing time, much as the sky often goes unnoticed because of the clouds that sail through its vast open spaces. This exact same relationship holds true when it comes to you and what is divine. To ask yourself, quote, what must I do in order to be all that I am, close quotes, amounts to something like the eye asking, what must I do to be able to see? Now it's really powerful, right? What must I do to become all that I am? It's a non-question. It's like asking, what's the marital status of this sandwich? It's not relevant. You are already all that you are. You don't become all that you are by changing something, by doing something differently. It's already there. You're whole and complete just as you are. Guy Finley goes on and writes, again, the true spiritual life is incomparable. Nothing comes before revelation of the living now, and nothing follows it. There's only this now moment. There's only in this moment, what am I choosing to do with whatever I have dominion over? Mind energy, behavior, words, right? The energy moving through me, do I clamp down on it? Do I soften and breathe? Do I move into the breath? Do I recognize that any tightness or tension is indicative of goals that I'm holding that I can't, goals I'm holding for things I don't have control over? Because if I had control over them, I would just simply change the things and have my goals be met. So this true spiritual life is unlike anything else. Nothing comes before the revelation of the now moment, and nothing follows it. There is only this present moment. So then he goes on and says, always remember, you are not broken. He writes, you're just disconnected from the divine. And I would amend that to say, you're just disconnected from your awareness of your connection to the divine. You've just forgotten, or you're pretending not to be connected to that which you can never be separate from. He finishes it up with, dare to be, to just see what you are in each moment revealed, and give yourself to this task wholeheartedly. Your willing entrance into the whole estate of yourself is the same as entering into the unattainable life you seek. Right? That's just like the quote that we've heard a couple times already in this book, restated in various ways, that St. Francis of Assisi points out, you are what you're looking for. Whenever you think something's missing and you need to do or be or become something different or better, the thing that you're trying to do and be and become is already in your core. It's the very thing that's looking through you. So many ways to say the same thing over and over again. We are not separate from that which created us. I just got the image of the man made of salt who yearned to explore the ocean and said, go ahead, walk on in. And then he gets near the ocean and he takes a step and his toes disappear and he jumps back and says, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why am I disappearing? And The essence of it is to know something, you immerse yourself in it. You go with the flow of it. You don't hold on to your thoughts about yourself. You can't keep your thoughts about yourself, who you are, how important you are, or how unimportant you are, what your goal is in life and what you want to. You can't keep all those thoughts conscious in the front of your mind and actually meet and connect with another human being. You can't do those two things at once. There's various ways that we need to lose ourselves, die to ourselves, understand that our thoughts about ourselves are not who we are. There are many ways that each of us has created a thought-based relationship with our experiences of life, our emotions and our thoughts and the people around us. That relationship, that thought-based relationship that we've created is the problem that leads to our arguments, our broken relationships, our negative emotional states, etc. It's not the flow of life that causes our emotions. It's not what other people do and don't do, say and don't say, that causes our emotional response. It's how we choose to interpret and respond to those events. It's where we choose to focus our conscious mental mind energy, as Michael Ryce calls it. That's the creative force that generates our emotional states and expands it out to that's what creates our experience of life moment to moment. So the next portion here is titled Love, Gratitude, and Relationships with Others. He quotes himself here, Guy Finley quotes as saying, "It should be obvious, but it's not. We can't protect our heart and keep it open at the same time, any more than it's possible to be covered by a shadow and at the same time feel the caress of a sunbeam touching our face." The compassion key. Unlock deeper human connections. And Guy Finley writes, depending upon how old we are, we've all felt so many times the promise of peace in the world. When this war is over, when this new political party takes charge, when this scientific discovery changes everything. And yet, here we are well into the 21st century, and in spite of all the wars we've seen fought and all the changes in regimes and all the scientific discoveries, at this moment, the possibility of lasting peace in the world feels as precarious as it has ever felt in the history of humanity. And this is not only true between nations, it's true for each of us in our daily lives. We see it in the resentments we hold against each other, in the tensions between family members, in the way angry drivers pose a threat to everyone else. To understand why nothing ever seems to change, we have to realize that the pain we see being expressed around us begins with each of us as individuals, just as it has since the beginning of time. It's common for people to feel lost, unfulfilled, and threatened by forces outside of our control. And when we're in pain, it's very hard to realize that everyone else feels the same way. We cast blame on others for our pain. We rarely think about how others may suffer as much as we do. And so there's little compassion for the world. And without compassion, there's little hope for peace. The pain grows and finds a target, and it turns into a fight. If we're ever to live in the peaceful world that our hearts long for, we must see and acknowledge our own pain, while we see and acknowledge that same pain in others. Reminds me of the practice of Tonglen from the Buddhist teachings, where they invite you to breathe in all the pain and suffering of anybody in the world that's similar to your pain and suffering, and then to breathe out the healing that you hope your body and mind, your loving, compassionate energy that you hope comes to you from others. Breathe in the pain, breathe out the loving compassion. If we're ever to live in a peaceful world, that same peaceful world that our hearts long for, we must acknowledge and see our own pain and acknowledge that same pain in others. This may be the greatest paradox in the world. No one can hope to know the truth of their true individuality until they've realized their all-inclusive similarity with everyone that they meet. So, how do I used to say this statement about the only real difference between you and anybody who's ever lived or ever will live, the only real difference that means anything in the bottom line is the degree to which you can live from the direct lived experience that we're all the same. So the only difference one to another between a human being in a tree and a human being and another human being and a buffalo, the only difference is the degree to which the entity can live in the realization that we're all connected and we're all the same. Paradoxically. Seemingly paradoxically. Another thing we've talked about in this deep work is that when I think I see a paradox, the only thing I can know for certain is I'm not seeing the whole picture. Because everything in life is here, as Guy Finley would say, according to law. It's all operating under the laws of physics, life, whatever you want to call it, consciousness. So Guy Finley goes on here and he writes, we all want to be unique individuals. What we don't see is that uniqueness is our birthright. Just as no two snowflakes and no two cherry blossoms are exactly the same, no two human beings are the same at that level of scale. We're each born with a specific combination of qualities, allowing us to not only experience the world as only we can, and by some miracle beyond thought, to know the need of others. Not to think about other beings, but to feel their need. For example, we can feel the majesty of old-growth forest, or the timelessness in the movement of a river. Our attraction to those natural things is because they fulfill the natural need we have to participate in a greater unity, a greater holiness. But when it comes to feeling the need of other people, the problem is that, by and large, the very last thing we think about, the very first thing we think about is ourselves. Even when we're with other human beings, most of us never know what the other person we are with is actually feeling because we're too busy looking at him or her, either as something that can make us feel better about ourselves or as the source of the pain that we're in. And our solution is that they need to be changed. As a result of this limited, self-centered view, we have a problem when we see other people who are suffering. Our present solution to people who are in pain is to either throw at them what they need, listen dutifully while we wish they didn't have to, or in some other way placate them so that their pain doesn't reach us. So that I never really have to know the pain you're in because your needs have not been answered. The solution is to begin to understand that your need is the same as my need. It's from this wisdom that the gentle waters of compassion flow. And the more we drink from that cup, the more careful we are not to add to another person's pain, let alone push others away because we don't agree with them. There's no compassion in disagreement. And this is not to say that we should agree with all human beings. What we're saying is that without higher self-understanding as the basis for our relationship with others, there can't be true compassion or right action. Compassion is a shared experience of suffering. If we would just cultivate this kind of compassion, everything and everyone around us, including ourselves, would begin this great journey called a change of heart. If we allow ourselves to be fully present, if we allow ourselves to resonate with the truth of our shared experience of life, the truth of our shared source, whatever created me is what created the tree I'm looking at. Whatever created me is what created the people I interact with. And my experience of those people is created by what I choose to focus on and how I pour my mind energy into a certain pattern of thoughts or interpretations or beliefs. So that's all I'm going to read for today. We have some time for comments or questions. It's at least 5 minutes left, and your input is welcome. Today's a Tuesday, so there will be a support group tonight from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. All the information you would need to join us for that is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. There's a separate info page for Tuesdays and a separate info page for Thursdays support groups. Please feel free to join us. It's absolutely free through Zoom and or pass that information along to somebody you think might benefit. We will be happy to entertain return people, new people, etc. We have the format where we meet, get caught up a little bit, and then ask if people want to do worksheets or if they've got an issue to bring up to discuss from their questioning. And then we often listen to an hour or more of Michael Ryce, Guy Finley, Dale Allen Hoffman, one of the great teachers that we routinely lean into. Alan Watts, I forgot, last Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. Tuesday or Thursday last week, I read an Alan Watts piece at the end of the group. And he has some wonderful, very, very powerful straight talk descriptions of what happens as you move further and further toward your goal of realizing a deep spiritual truth about yourself, or to be in touch with your spiritual life, to be on your spiritual path. And it is a disruptive thing. For all that people talk about it and say they want it and work to achieve it, this thing that we call a spiritual life and a spiritual path is a disruptive thing. Why is that? Because if you are really focused on your life and your spiritual path, you do not function very well as a needy consumer. You get more content with whatever you have in life, and you're not racing around trying to buy more things or change your body in a certain way or redo your wardrobe or upgrade your transportation. So it really is a revolutionary and a disruptive act for people to pursue their spiritual awakening, to do what Michael Ryce would call creating a viable, conscious spiritual body and then strengthening it. This is what Michael used to call that used to be his words for the primary purpose, as he would describe it in his lecture, Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment. which, is a really useful talk and a really useful tool. He's got the tool for creating your secondary purpose, which will be unique to you. And again, you can order that DVD from his website, and or you can just go to the whyagain.org and click on the words that say start here, and then when you scroll down on that page, there are a list of worksheets and other worksheets, and in the other worksheets list there's one called secondary purpose. So you can download that, read a little bit about it, and or if you have questions, you can call the internet show or send us an email, and Michael will be happy to address that and explain to you the how-to and the power of the worksheet that helps you develop your secondary purpose. And then, armed with your primary and secondary purpose, you get up each morning with some kind of a plan, and you recognize that